What's up and welcome to the Active Amputee podcast. Everything people with a limb difference need to live an active and exciting lifestyle. I'm Bjorn Eser, the founder of and shaker and maker behind the Active Amputee. And you're listening to episode number 32, and today I have the pleasure of talking with Nate Danofre. Nate Danofre is a double amputee from the USA, and he's the first amputee to paddle down the entire length of the Mississippi River in a canoe. Hi there, everyone. Today I have the pleasure of welcoming Nate Danofre on the show. Nate, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Nate, where are you dialing in from today?
I'm United States, Michigan. I'm right next to Lake Superior, pretty close to Canada. So winter wonderland.
Great. That sounds really good. Nate, you're on the show today to talk a bit about your background. You're a double above knee amputee, if I'm not mistaken. And a couple of years ago, you took on a real big challenge. You paddled down the whole length of the Mississippi. And you also encourage other people with disability to go out in Mother Nature. And yeah, you really support people who are dealing with one struggle or another to actually deal with that in a constructive and productive way. So, welcome on the show, and it's really great having the chance to talk about all your endeavors. Nate, probably present yourselves to the audience a bit. How come you're above knee amputee?
Well, I'm 41 years old, and 41 years ago, I became an amputee. Amniotic band wrapped around both of my legs. It's usually, from what I hear, kind of rare to get both legs, but I'm pretty much right at the knee on my left side, and my right side I'm a little bit shorter than the left, but so I don't know any other way. I've always been an amputee, and I've always found a way to do what I must, to get around, to keep up, and to live a functional life. So I know a few tricks in the last 4 decades, you could say.
I have no doubts about that.
Always learning.
I have no doubts about that. Have you lived in Michigan all your life?
Mostly. I was born in Michigan. When I was small. I learned to swim. I got my first pair of prosthetics when I was 9 months old, actually.
Wow.
From a wonderful hospital in Grand Rapids, Michigan called Mary Free Bed. They made every pair of legs almost to this day. So it's I'm a little fond of them, you could say. But they got me to start swimming, and then I played high school football. I was the starting nose tackle for my football team. I was in swimming and wrestling and you name it. So I was always pretty active. I didn't like to sit around.
It sure sounds like it. Back at, growing up in the 80s and early 90s, what was it like back then, before bionic knees, before things became more mainstream with social media, when you probably had to figure out many things by yourself? How was it growing up as a double amputee in Michigan in, the 80s and early 90s?
I was very fortunate, and as I grew up in a smaller community, a very tight-knit community. I was pretty fortunate, 7,000 or 8,000 person town at the most. Everyone knew me, everyone looked out for me, everyone helped me, vice versa. It was pretty good. I will admit, prosthetics have come light years, literally light years. I remember wearing basswood, and my sockets were basswood, and my knees were literally leather and pins. Metal pins with leather, and it was pretty tricky to balance on them and stuff. It was a little different. There was always support, I guess, but nothing like today. You'd have to actually really go out and look for it sometimes, because no internet.
Yeah.
So, but it was a lot different. I think things are 80% better at least, with newer prosthetics, the technology behind them, better laws to help people like us. And stuff like that. It's a lot better now than it was, but you got to find a way to survive. I just got to do what you have to do and find a way.
I fully agree.
Right.
Germans are quite famous for, I think, for whinging and complaining, very often on a very high level, on a high standard. But I mean, as you said, you have to do what you have to do. Even if you complain a lot, the legs won't grow back, things won't get better. It's just that you're wasting a lot of energy instead of thinking about creative approaches. What you said, how can I be active? How can I be in a school sports team? How can I don't know, explore the surroundings around the house, around the community?
Right,
And
right.
it sounds good. Yeah, let's take a jump from the 80s and early 90s a bit forward. Growing up, I saw a couple of years ago, I think it was 2020, you took on a big challenge. You took a canoe and said, let's not just paddle around the upper Michigan, but let's paddle a bit further. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Absolutely. It's quite a tale, I guess you could say. I had my hip replaced twice on my right side and limited my mobility quite a bit. I was living in Wisconsin. I was working as a CNC machinist for years, and I quit. I just couldn't handle the 40 hours a week, and I didn't like to stay idle. And this was in 2015. So I came back to Michigan, hiked through the Huron Mountains 159 days, raised a little bit of money. I started a nonprofit, some stuff to get people outside, enjoying the woods, fishing, hiking, canoeing, camping. But I felt like I needed to do more. It was still, how can I say it? I don't want to sound cliche, but a fire in the basement or something inside that just wouldn't go away. So I met my wife, and she's never been in a canoe in her life, and she wanted to go with. So I said, okay, let's do the Mississippi River, and it was definitely an experience. Yeah, 109 days on the
And
Big
you're still
Miss.
together.
Mostly.
Yeah.
I found out that prosthetics make excellent holders for granola bars and water bottles and all kinds of stuff in the canoe. So I learned a bunch of new tricks.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was 109 days. We left Lake Itasca, Minnesota, the headwaters of the Mississippi. And at this point, if you didn't know any better and someone would have told you that's Mississippi River, you would never believe it. I mean, it's literally 2.5, maybe 3 feet wide. Just a little tiny creek, and it grows, as we all know, quite rapidly. So you start off on it, it's a little creek, and you learn with the river. River gradually gets a bit bigger, and you learn as well. But yeah, it was 109 days, long days. That's for sure. We started in the snow. We ended up at 2 hurricanes in Louisiana. It was river miles. It's I think 2,300 and about 2,300 miles, but paddling miles because you're zigzagging down the river.
Yeah.
We were pushing 27, 2,800 total miles.
For people who work in a different system, I think we're talking 4,500, 4,800 kilometers, something like that.
Kilometers, I believe so. I'd have to look real
Yeah.
quick. But yeah, it's definitely a trip,
Yeah. Wow.
a long one. 9 states,
Yeah. And you said what about 105, 108 days? How long were you on?
109,
Yeah.
109.
Wow.
And a lot of people. I'm the first double amputee to ever canoe it. There was
Yeah.
a gentleman from El Salvador that kayaked it, I think, 15, 20 years ago. But so technically the first American double amputee, or the first to ever canoe it. I don't think you can research it enough. You learn lots of stuff out there. It's a crazy world, but you crave for it. It's beautiful,
Yeah.
absolutely beautiful. But we spend lots of days. We call them 0 days, where you just take the day off, because of wind and stuff like that. But we made it, in St. Louis, we stopped, and in different cities we stopped for people that were disabled. Some people had cerebral palsy, disabled children, stuff like that. So we stopped, spent some time with them, and it's a trip of a lifetime. So we didn't rush anything. But, a lot of people get it done in 60, 70 days, but we took our time and enjoyed ourselves and try to help everybody out.
It sure sounds amazing. You already said it's nothing you can really properly prepare for it. But in terms of where you said, okay, how did you put yourself in the right mind frame and physically active, and probably having at least where you said, well, these are the essential skills before we before we kick it off. What did you do?
I mean, a good canoe, obviously. I planned this trip for about 2 years. And then, like, about 3 months before, we all know COVID came and really put a stop to a lot of things. And I was worried about getting resupplied. Should I even leave? I mean, you can't be more socially isolated than being in a 17-foot canoe in the middle of the Mississippi River. So, but the big thing is, I was deathly afraid, am I going to get resupplied? Am I going to be allowed in towns? I mean, I can't carry 3 months of food on me. because there's over 20 portages. Some are a couple miles long and stuff like that. So I mean, that's a lot of gear, and we way overpacked. I think I brought 65 pounds of beef jerky and stuff like that. But everything was cool. We stayed safe. And there's people called river angels. And it's people that live near the river. They take you in for the night, give you something to eat, give you a ride to the store and to resupply. So, and if it wasn't for them, I don't think I would have made it. I mean, hats off. God bless them. They were wonderful, wonderful human beings. But the COVID thing was kind of tough. We were going to Minneapolis, and there was riots, and we were going through all the river. I mean, it was a different sort of trip.
Yeah,
absolutely. But I learned real quick that there's a lot of good in this world. There's more good than bad. I mean, people were so perfect strangers coming up to you, giving you a bottle of water and talking about anything. It was wonderful. It really changed my perspective on lots of.
In the beginning of our interview, you spoke about the community in the place where you grew up, where you said, people taking care of each other, people watching out for each other, people, you don't have to be best friends, but you respect each other, you support each other, you're there for each other. If you look back at your trip, if I look at my various adventures, big and small, and the trips around the world, it's very often these encounters with people, sometimes very small ones, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, which really leave a lasting impression. Where there's some way you say, well, this really stuck with me. This person, I'm carrying it around. The impressions I got, the memories from the meetings.
Right. Yep. That's wonderful. That's the lasting impression. And I joke with my wife sometimes, and I say sometimes, the most memorable things, you'd think of going to St. Louis with the arches and canoeing through all this stuff, and sometimes it's just people. Well, we got to Natchez, Mississippi. We found out there was 2 hurricanes on the way. We had like 2 or 3 days, and we're thousands of miles from home. We have in our canoe with it's everything we own, and alligators. Boy, I'm a guy from Michigan. I've never seen alligators besides in a zoo. So when they're 11, 12 feet long, swimming next to your canoe and bumping into you, and it's kind of it's a different world. But this gentleman waved us in down in Louisiana. We took the Atchafalaya Channel down. This guy from Louisiana, to this day, I think of him more than I think of the archers at St. Louis. Just the kindness and the experience overall. So it was wonderful. So it was a good thing. We to try to inspire some people. We wanted to carry the American flag right down the middle of the country, and it just happened to be it worked out. And we didn't even dump once, so that was pretty good. Lucky.
That sounds pretty good. And it's a nice reminder, as you said, that there's so much good in the world. I mean, we're constantly bombarded with bad news, and people try to instill fear and suspicion and hatred in us. And I think it's good to see, it's absolutely there's so much good and trust in the world, and very often complete strangers.
Right. It's easy to say, especially how could I put it? A lot of times with a prosthetic leg doesn't fit right or something. I hate to say we have more troubles than most people. I can't judge that, but it seems it'd be easier to get more negative. I know myself, my biggest battle myself is negativity, positivity. Some days I'm like, oh, I got to put these legs on. I got to walk in. It hurts and this, my feet are broken. It's just, and you got to catch, I try to catch myself. I tell myself it's okay to visit that place. Negativity, we're human. We're going to go there sometimes, but we're not going to live there. That's my biggest struggle. And I'll be honest, sometimes positivity and being happy, and it's tough. It really is sometimes for all of us. But
there is this story, and I don't really know where it comes from, or it's an urban myth, but it's said to be an ancient story where you say, okay, grandfather sits down with his grandchild and says, in all of us, there are these 2 wolves fighting. There's really a revengeful, hateful, really fierce wolf, constantly negative. And then there's a positive wolf, really caring about his family, the siblings, the wider pack, a positive, optimistic wolf. And the grandchild asks, so which one is winning? And the grandfather says, the one we feed.
Right.
And I think that is such a nice story, where it's really, it's about us with these, as you said, juggling these feelings, not saying they're not there, but, which ones do we give more importance, more attention, and which ones do we feed? Yeah.
Right. That's why I like getting out in the woods. Ever since I was young, I was born and raised in it's called the Huron Mountains. You know, a couple thousand feet high. I mean, they're not like the Rockies or anything, but you know, beautiful nonetheless. You know, I'm right on one of the biggest freshwater lakes in the world. Nature, ever since I was a kid, there's no judgment in nature. You know, it's more pure. It judges you for your accomplishments, not what you look like. And I take disabled vets. You know, I used to take them out quite a bit. Sometimes I consider myself lucky. I don't know really what I missed, and then maybe I shouldn't say it like that, but I never had legs. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of times people. I think the biggest trouble is their mind. They can't change their body, and it's so frustrating. It takes you 25 minutes to put shoes on, or they're not used to that, and it's hard to sync their mind with their new situation physically. So I used to take them in the woods and show them what they really can do. You can alter your mind. You can't change your legs or your arms. You can change your mind. And that's what I used to try to do. And that's why I love nature. It's positive. It's tough. It's deserving at the end of the day. You get done with a hike or a climb. I'm getting old though, and kind of plump. So it's a little harder.
41 is not yet old, Nate. That's not an excuse. Nate, but talking about your organization and your motivation to give others a hand and say, you know, I tried a lot of things in my 40 years of life, and I had my ups and downs, and I figured out what works for me and what doesn't work for me, and then reaching out to others who probably had a much more abrupt, life-changing events where you have to get used to a new life from one day to the next, or after coma, or after really challenging times. If I'm not mistaken, you set up a charity, an NGO, or something which actually helps people, throughout the United States. You want to tell us a bit more about it, and also obviously give us the name of the organization?
I founded a 501 charity in 2015. It was called Courage Incorporated, and we to take out disabled vets and adults, and it was a great thing. But I wanted to do more. I really, really did. So the papers are just going through. We just got a Facebook page and stuff set up. It's called Stormport. STORM Port.
Yeah.
And a lot of that inspiration came from the Mississippi River for this organization, because, you know, a storm, I would go to a port, and then I thought of the river angels bringing food, shelter, the basic essentials for to have a quality of life. We call it Stormport, and we deliver hot, healthy food to disabled vets, disabled adults, anybody with disability, really no questions asked. Rides to the VA for the veterans, right to the doctors for free. And also eventually we're going to get into, hopefully sooner than later, but temporary shelter placement. It does tiny homes. You know, if you're a disabled person, you need a place to stay for a while, a little retreat, we have little tiny homes. You want to start getting up and start helping people a lot. You know, taking them in the woods was great. Taking them fishing and seeing the feeling of accomplishment was wonderful, but I knew I could do more.
Great.
So, and we all need food, we all need shelter, we all need a friend sometimes. So figured let's put them all together.
That sounds amazing. Great. Yeah, and I'm going to make sure I put some of the information you gave me into the show notes, so if people want to look it up, or if people want to get in touch with you, that they have an idea on where to find you and where to start.
Yep.
If you look back at your years of engagement with veterans, with people with disabilities, with some of the disabilities are quite obvious, some others are more hidden, and people are struggling. For you, what was the most rewarding experience, or the ones where you said that's actually what gives me the energy and the motivation to keep going and give my time and give my creativity?
There's a lot of examples. You know, I seem like a big and hard kind of guy, but I used to end up crying almost every weekend how we take people. You know, several occasions really come to mind. There's this little river that I know, and it's about a half a mile long of waterfalls, little mountain creek, and it's really rough country. I mean, it's tough. And I took a gentleman with multiple sclerosis, severe multiple sclerosis. He was walking maybe half a mile a week at most. And I took him out there, and I tied a rope around him. I tied a rope around me. We went up, we fished, we went on some waterfalls. We looked, and he was up to almost 7 miles from Friday night to Sunday morning. And he told me, he goes, I forgot I was disabled. He said, I completely forgot. And I said, that's perception right there. It's perception. It's not, well, I have MS. It's what's over that next waterfall. You know, is there gold in this river? Is It's perception. Everything's perception, in my opinion. Or when you take a veteran and we did some rock climbing and to these old silver mines way up in the woods. It was hard to get him up there. This person was missing a leg, and I said, I don't have any legs, and I can get up there. You have one. You have no excuse. It was kind of hard,
Yeah.
trying to get him up a little bit, and he got up to the top, and they say, I'm not scared anymore. Right away, I'm ready to keep going. That feels good. There's no paycheck in the world like that can bring you, and
Yeah.
that's wonderful. So I got addicted.
I think it doesn't sound like the worst addiction you could choose from.
You're right. A good, I don't say addiction, but a good feeling that was habit forming.
Yeah.
I wanted to do it more and help more and more and more and more.
Yeah, but what you said, creating an environment or creating a safe space, physically safe, more or less safe, but also emotionally safe, where people can open up, where people can confront their fears, and where you said you help people. I'm not sure if completely eradicating their fears in one way or another, but at least making sure, okay, this was something I was afraid of, and now I'm less afraid of. I feel more confident in actually tackling something. It might not accomplish everything, but I'm in a better mindset to actually at least give it a try. And this thing of I rather look back and say, "Whoops, that didn't work," than looking
Right.
back and said, "I wish I would have tried that back
Right.
then, 5 years ago, 10 years ago."
Right.
And I think that is great. Yeah.
Yep. It's a good feeling. But it's addicting. And I read into the psychiatry a little bit, but especially my wife. My wife's been a registered nurse for 20 years, and she loves to read. But we were looking into when you're done with an adventure like that, you get very depressed.
Yeah.
Depressed. You look for more and you seek it. I have a feeling you know what I'm talking about a little bit.
Yes.
So we're kind of dealing with that a little bit after we were done for a while. But we have great plans. I'd like to do the Missouri River. I'll be honest, but the water level recent years. I mean, I don't know who, what, where, and why, but there's very little water in the Mississippi or the Missouri, and the winds on that lake or on that river can be brutal. I hear there's a lot of lakes, so canoeing the lakes gets kind of scary when there's 20-mile-an-hour wind and you're 16 miles out.
Yeah, no,
So,
true that.
right.
I have on my bucket. No, I don't like the word bucket list, but on the things where I think, oh, these are things I still would like to do. Is I had a bit of a taste of getting into sea kayaking when I was living in the UK.
Nice.
The Welsh coast is a stunning coast and was just 2.5 hours from where I lived. And a colleague of mine, good friend of mine, he was way better in sea kayaking than I was. And so, as a team, it was quite good. And I still have this idea of hopefully when the kids are out of the house to get a bit more experienced so that I feel safer and probably also learn to roll the kayak, or at least feel able to get out and get in again while I'm on a choppy, rough sea. And then probably just take, whatever, 6 weeks or something, paddle along Scandinavian coast. Or again, the Irish Sea is quite stunning. Can be rough, but it's a stunning coast along the Welsh or Irish coast. And yeah, it's still on my list. At the moment, it's flat or even flattest water. The last lake I've been on last week was more like a mirror, really almost untouched. Beautiful, yeah.
Yeah, like you're flying.
Yeah,
I love it.
And as you said, it helps so much to actually getting into a different mindset, not just on the big things, also when you feel wrapped up or stuck in your work and have the feeling, oh, for weeks every day looked the same, and suddenly it's like, it's my mind, it's my mindset, it's not the world around me.
Exactly, the world around you is your mindset, perhaps in a way.
Yeah,
not to get too physiological, but yes, right.
Nate, if you look back at your, men's experience, if you had one or two or three pieces of advice for other people who are struggling, especially people maybe who lost their legs unexpectedly, who hopped on a motorcycle in the morning and wake up 3 hours later, a day later, and suddenly have to adapt to maybe being a double amputee or really having to face a big change in their life, what would be some pieces of advice you would like to share?
Life isn't over. I mean, not even close. It's a new life. You have to relearn some things, and it's a struggle, and it's maybe not convenient, maybe something we don't want, but that's life. But you have to keep moving forward, and there's no You can't stop. You can't. And one day of stopping leads to two to four, and it's too hard to get back going again. So, and a big piece of advice is not if, but when you start get negative, or I hate to say the word pity party that I have sometimes, like I'm sure everybody in the world does. It's okay. It's normal, but there's a line, again, it's okay to visit, but not live. And that's a pretty hard battle. And the third thing I can think of is, and that's a big thing too. Like a lot of people will recommend this. Just because we're amputees doesn't mean we're all the same. We have different things that work for each one of us. So I don't, in my opinion, I don't think there's a guide or a line that the things that work and things that don't. Try everything and see, even no matter how unorthodox it may seem, try it. Maybe you'll get around. I used to ride bikes and pedal the little tricycles with my hands and steer with my shoulders. And, you have to find a different way to get around. But most importantly, it's the word disabled. I think the only way a person can become disabled, it's not by losing a leg. It's not by losing an arm or two legs, or it's by giving up and by being afraid. I think fear is the biggest disability in the world. You look at the word disability, it's something that's preventing you to do something you should be able to do in a way. And I think fear is the main thing that stops a lot of people. And I'm not saying go, skydive or right off the bat, but walk around the block, go to the store. Sometimes I used to, my personal experience, I didn't want to go to a gathering or an event because, it's so much work putting my legs on and doing this and extra walking and try to find a handy capable stairwell and, just do it. You'd be glad that you did. So it's, you can't be scared. You got to keep moving forward. It's good to be scared. You're going to be scared, but you can't let it stop you, because then you're done. Then you lose.
Yeah.
And that's my opinion. I hate to be blunt, but it is what it is.
I think sometimes being blunt is not the worst thing. And as you said, that's your opinion, and people,
Right.
they hear it and they can make the decision by themselves.
Agreed.
But I think it's, especially when we feel down or out, or I don't know, put to the side, not appreciated enough, this reminder, just give it a try. The worst thing that can happen is it doesn't work.
Right.
The best thing that can happen is it does. And somewhere in between is probably on the spectrum between nothing works and everything works.
Yep.
All of us find ourselves there. And I think it's good pushing it towards what is possible and having a good laugh every once in a while about ourselves and the world.
Yes, you have to.
And great.
Every once in a while, I every few summers, I volunteer with disabled children through another nonprofit up here. I always I volunteer to take the teenagers that are recently amputated, and I try to get them to do things they don't want to do, and that is fun, actually. Yeah. One gentleman was missing an arm, and he was scared to death to swim. And I said, "Well, how many arms?" He's, "I can't swim. I don't have an arm." I said, "Well, how many arms and legs do a fish have?" And he looked at me, and I said, there's really no excuse. But at the end of the day, he was scared. He started floating. He started going in the water. At the end of the day, he was the happiest kid I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah.
He got over that one little step he needed that little courage, just over that one little step, that little boundary, if you would.
Yeah. Yeah.
Changed his life. It's all about taking that next step.
Great. Nate, it's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, sir.
I can't wait hearing more about all your all the ideas which are in the making, all the charities and other organizations you're involved with. And as I said, I'm going to make sure I probably pop you an email later to ask for all the contacts from the organization you mentioned, because I think it's great if people find it in the show notes. But for now, thank you so much for taking your time and sharing with us on this show. It's been a real pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And if you're ever this way, look me up.
I sure do. At the moment, I don't see any big trip coming up, unfortunately. But if I ever come anywhere close to your place, I'll make sure I have enough time to visit.
I'll meet you with a paddle in a river.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Bjorn. Many blessings. Stay safe, my friend.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new episodes. And I would really appreciate it if you leave me a rating on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you want to learn more about the Active Amputee, make sure to head over to www.theactiveamputee.org, where you find hundreds of articles from amputees for amputees. Articles filled with inspiration, information, and encouragement to be active and live a rewarding life. I see you all again for the next episode. Until then, all the best. This is Bjorn from The Active Amputee.